All right, so chapter 15, we're continuing to talk about adolescence, and now we talk about cognitive development. We left off in the biosocial development with two main events that are taking place during these years. We said the onset of puberty and what comes with it as a byproduct in increased hormones and development. And we also talked about that reconstruction of the brain. And we talked about how there are certain areas in the brain that advance and develop faster than others. We said the limbic system is going to create that excitement and onrush and happiness when we engage in something exciting. And sometimes that excitement might not be safe. So that part of the brain where I have to assess what I'm going to do is developing, but at a slower rate. And therefore, sometimes we fall trapped to doing things and regretting them later. So in continuation with that, brain maturation and those years of schooling and continuous interaction with peers and so forth is going to yield a kind of a propelled cognitive growth. And this will manifest itself in a concentration or a focus, intense focus on oneself. So we're now going to enter into the phase of egocentric thinking, just like we were as children in the early childhood years. We're back again to that egocentric mind, and this time I'm an adolescent, so I am thinking about myself, but I'm also at a stage where I develop theory of mind. So I am egocentric about myself, but I'm also conscientious about what others think of me. So this creates that kind of intense focus about how I look and what others are seeing when they look at me. So that self-consciousness and kind of focus on how the physical appearance is and how I'm viewed by others is kind of a byproduct of that adolescent egocentrism. Another byproduct of that egocentric thinking during the adolescent years is that the adolescent starts to interpret everyone else's behavior as if it was a judgment of themselves. And I keep trying to remind myself of this as I'm interacting with my youngest son, who is going through adolescent right now. And even the simplest comment like, oh, you're awake early today, this somehow gets manipulated and misunderstood, and the answer would be, what do you mean? Why are you asking? Instead of just a simple comment as you woke up early today. So this reading too much into people's comments and sentences is a kind of a byproduct of that adolescent egocentric mind and focus on oneself and how one is perceived by others. Now that's going to also create what we call imaginary audience, and it literally means imaginary audience, thinking that the egocentric adolescent thinks that everybody else out there is their audience and they are the performer, and nobody has anything else to do in their life but to really watch their every move and judge their every move and take notice of every little thing that is good or bad about them. So an egocentric adolescent is going to be extra conscientious about, let's say, a little stain on their dress or a little pimple that just started to show up when they woke up in the morning, or an extra frizzy hair. And they really, it becomes so overwhelming that they really feel that they cannot go out in public because everybody's going to take notice of that minor imperfection in their appearance. Egocentrism is also going to lead to what is called the personal fable, and a personal fable is really because you are so focused upon on yourself, because you really think that you are the most important thing in the world, and the world revolves around you. Then you also overly inflate your abilities or your miseries. So the belief that one is unique and their thoughts and feelings and experiences are more wonderful or awful than anyone else's is a byproduct of the egocentric mind. The thought that, my ability is like no one else's, my skill is like no one else's. Of course, there's nothing wrong of feeling good about your abilities, but you also need to be assessing them in an accurate way so that you don't overjudge. The bad side of this is that when you are going through an adversity, you also over exaggerate and assume that no one else can understand the misery that you're going through, or that the fact that your parents divorced is going to be the end of the world. And if somebody tries to talk to you about it, your answer might be, well, you don't understand, or you will never understand, but mine is worse, but you don't get it. These are the comments that are usually used by adolescents, and they're the ones that parents sometimes feel frustrated with, because they are trying to relate and let their children know that I was a teenager once and I can understand or I can relate. But the teenager usually responds with, no, mom, you don't understand, or dad, you don't get it. The other thing that egocentrism leads to is the concept of invincibility. And this is very common with teenagers, because teenagers believe that they are able to go on and do things undetected, that anyone can get caught, but they can't. Anyone can be affected by a wrong decision, but they are too good to be affected by it. So, unprotected sex, because no, I'm not going to get pregnant, or using drugs, no, I'm not going to get caught, or drinking and driving, or high speed driving, or one of my favorite, which actually happened with one of my friend's sons, who refused to listen to mom when she said, do not have any of your friends with you in the car during your provisional license period. And he ended up disobeying her because, again, of that invincibility fable that he's never going to get caught. And he ended up getting caught on the night of his high school graduation. So he was late for his graduation. So, again, these are all examples of what an egocentric mind can lead to during those adolescent years, and how it kind of clouds the decision making of teenagers that we as adults think of as crazy, or what were you thinking? Well, the truth is they were not thinking. They were thinking, but in a from a different perspective. It's that egocentric perspective that they have and are going through.